We are the Acc and Jack Show. Hello. You can find us at accandjack.com. That is accandjack.com. We are presented by the Solid Listen Podcast Network and also a very good podcast called Hardly Folks. Chris Acciardi, Jack Gill.
Right.
Perfectly cromulent, I would say. Chris Acciardi, Jack Gill, and we are doing something we don't usually do, and that is doing it live.
Fuck it.
That's right. It's a live installment of the Acc and Jack Show, which doesn't happen too often, but it is election night in...
I can't remember the last time we did one live.
Years?
Yeah.
So much so that I don't know how all of this works, and there's probably a solid 3 minutes of the stream, if you go back and watch it, where I'm sitting here trying to figure out, is it working? Okay, it's working. I played the wrong thing. This thing is too loud, and just kind of low-key panicking on my end. But
while you were doing that, while you were going open, I as a bit started shaking my microphone like I was throttling it and proceeded to unplug every part of it. And was then scrabbling to get everything reconnected before you finished reconnecting on your end. And I think I just narrowly made it.
Let's hear how we sound.
While you were doing that, while you were going open, I as
Speaking
a
of down in
bit
Brazil, right?
started.
Oh, I've got ABC going on in the background. I'm like, why the hell is there so much going on? This is often a riveting start. So that's how this is going to go. I've got the news on. I've got CNN up. It is election night, so that's why we are here. Okay, for real. Hear how we sound.
While you were doing that, while you were going
Perfect.
open.
So we on the Acc and Jack Show tend to get very political. We tend to lean left and then make fun of those who lean right. And this obviously is a very polarizing election because you've got someone who is, in my opinion, very well qualified for the job, being a prosecutor and having I'd say a substantial resume in politics, at least being a district attorney, and then, or attorney general. Forgive me, I always blank on what her background was.
Well, I'm pretty sure it was both, right? I mean, she was Attorney General of California, but before that, she would have been just an attorney.
She's the law
prosecutor.
talking. She's the law talking guy.
Yep.
And then you've got the felon. You've got the guy who, for all intents and purposes, should not be where he is right now. There's a lot of things that you can look back on and say, well, that should have disqualified you. That should have made it so you weren't eligible to run.
This man's brain has been steadily leaking out of his ears for the past 10 years, and we have all been forced to sit and watch.
Yeah. And, you know, we always play the joke, the drop of Stephen Colbert talking about how in 2016 it was a joke, and then we just didn't take it seriously enough. And then look what happened.
Yeah.
I would like to think after 2020, we learned our lesson. And I'm going to say like a solid 50% of me says, I don't think we learned our lesson.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's, you know, you can analyze all the data in the world that shows that we're doing good. The Harris campaign is making a lot of very important inroads in places where they need to be. But the PTSD from 2016 just cannot be shaken, right? And until I see the final results confirmed, like reported by every major news site, I can't fully let myself believe we have this in the bag.
Right. And even the polls leading up to this were very
bizarrely close. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have been, so quickly, per NBC, and this is why I wanted to do this live, is because it would only be apropos for this show to like react in real time to election results and then post the podcast recording of that several days later when it is relevant to nobody, if unless you want to go back and listen to our jubilance possibly turn into misery.
Right. Yeah, when you asked me if I wanted to do a show tonight, my thought was, well, I'm either going to become an increasingly smug prick or increasingly descend into a hysterical panic attack. And you know what? Both would make for good radio.
Sure. Yeah. I think I would just do what I usually do. I would clam up. I would sit here in silence. I would probably rethink all the decisions I've ever made in my life, and we'll go from there. And then I guess I have to then think about 2016 and between 2016 and 2020 and be like, okay, well, how did we live during that? And it was, well, let's put it this way. Mike Ferraro, who co-hosts Hardly Focused, he, like, it was the first, Kamala won Vermont with all three of its electoral votes. But, and Bernie Sanders won up there too. He got elected to a fourth term as whatever it is he does up there. And
good for him.
I didn't even know he was still like in the running for this.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. But I remember Mike coming into the studio when we were doing, I think, our first podcast after Trump was elected, and he was already talking about, like, the special prosecutors, like who we have now, like in Jack Smith, and just the dirt that was going to be uncovered and put up against him. And now, I mean, he was hopeful that Trump has won West Virginia. No surprise. Once you get to the Bible Belt and below, that's when that red shift comes in. But yeah, Mike kind of calling what ultimately ended up happening really over the last couple of years, seeing Trump get convicted of several felonies, and again, Jack Smith doing all this stuff. But then at the same time, like, sure, the right side has their own share of conspiracy theories and what have you. But it was, Mike, like, conspiracy theories from the left. You don't really hear about that.
Yeah,
those don't really exist.
Are you talking about the like the whole Bernie Sanders debacle of 2016? And I kind of think that's what really fucked us in 2016. And I think blessedly the vibes have been a lot better. They were better in 2020, and I think they're better now. But I'm not a tastemaker. I don't know what's cool. I don't know what people like. I loved Hillary Clinton. I think Hillary Clinton is great. I still love her. I think she's phenomenal. She was like my favorite politician ever. I own multiple of her books. I've seen her speak on tour. I am a genuine, unironic Hillary Clinton fan. People fucking hated her. And I think, at the time, it was easy to, I was kind of shrugging it off. It's just the internet. It's just, trolls online, social media trolls. Don't listen to them. She's got this in the bag. But I think all the negativity really firmly damaged her enough for Trump to clinch the win. I think the people not thinking Trump was a serious threat and people thinking Hillary sucked enough that they didn't want to vote for her was sort of the perfect storm of people being complacent and just letting it get out of hand. So I mean, obviously every election, you saw it in 2020 with people saying, the Tara Reid story of, the woman who accused Biden of sexual assault. And then now in 2024, you've got mostly the pro-Palestine, anti-Israel protesters who call Biden and Harris, murderers and genocidaires. And in both of these situations, I don't want to just write them all off as loopy, because I think there's perfectly reasonable reasons to be disheartened by certain policies of the candidates. That's fine. But there isn't that all-consuming, oppressive, like, just loathing that people had for Hillary Clinton. There's the dedicated haters are clearly in the minority, And there's a lot more people who are just comfortable saying, I like them. I'm going to vote for them.
Yeah.
I think it would be good if they won.
Yep.
You didn't really hear that in 2016.
No, and I think it was just bizarre that Hillary was ultimately the candidate, that she was going to be representing the Democratic Party. And it just seems like such an off choice. I mean, I know she obviously had a very successful career in politics post her husband in his presidency. And I'm hoping this is a good omen. I'm wearing my shirt that has Bill Clinton listening to his favorite Stone Roses albums.
I noticed. I respect.
It was between that or my King of the Hill Made in America shirt. And, I think Hank would be voting Republican. I mean, Hank was a Reagan fan.
Yeah. Did you see that? What was it? USA Today polled Americans on what they think fictional characters would vote for.
Mm-hmm.
And the majority of people said Hank would be voting for Trump, which caused a lot of discourse on Twitter.
I imagine in the reboot, which is now we're starting to see things from it. Thanks, Gray Delisle, for sharing stuff that you weren't supposed to share. But just with the way things have been since King of the Hill ended, I can see that playing a subtle role in the show, especially considering there will be a time jump. So to see an older Hank Hill and his older, adult age son now, like how that's all going to play out. But then there's got to be some underlying, like political motif that's, again, it might not be like explicitly called out in the show, but we will be, it will have an impact on it. So who knows? Maybe Hank and Peggy Peggy probably definitely a Kamala fan.
Yeah, that was one comment I saw of, we can argue all day as to whether Hank Hill is a Trump voter or not, but the Peggy Hills are why Kamala has a good shot at this.
Well, I go back to my Hillary comments. I just thought she was just such a bizarre choice. And then just back then, just the things that people would latch onto, the emails thing, the Benghazi thing. And like, you could see in this election that people were trying to dig up the same dirt, not just on Kamala, but on Doug Emhoff. Is it Emhoff or Emhoff?
I think it's Emhoff.
Emhoff. I'd say everything incorrectly. You know me.
Yeah.
But his first marriage ending, in an affair, whatever. He's a dude. He's an American dude. It's literally how it works.
Yeah, it's one of those, are you sure you want to use this for the candidate who's running against Donald Trump? Again, a serial adulterer, credibly accused of many cases of rape and sexual assault, found civilly liable for rape. Are you sure Kamala's husband was at one point unfaithful to a previous partner? Is the route you want to go with this guy?
Yeah. And then, it was so obvious that we were grasping for straws when Tim Walz was announced to be the running mate, and you're pulling his successes out in trying to use those against him. Like, that is when you know that your party leader is so much of a failure that you're just going to be like, you know what? I can't hit above the belt. I can't hit below the belt. So let's just use his successes against him.
Right. And I mean, it's such a bizarre example of the slant of the media. And I know how do I want to put this? The generally accepted perception is that the media is left leaning. I don't fully buy that. I think the media is so terrified of being perceived as anything but perfectly impartial that they feel like they have a duty to equalize these two parties, even when they are not equal. So it's what happened with butthurt emails in 2016, and you just see it over and over again, where Trump will just say the most insane stream of consciousness blathering of absolute lunacy, and it will get the same amount of press coverage as Tim Walz accidentally said he went to China on his honeymoon 6 months earlier than he actually did.
Yeah.
35 years ago.
Right.
And those are considered like this. They have to be treated by the media as, see, we call them both out on their lies. We point out that it's technically not true when Trump says that leprechauns are stealing the poop out of his toilet. And we also say it's technically not true when Tim Walz says he had a grilled cheese for lunch when actually he had a grilled cheese for brunch.
How dare you confuse the two? Yeah. By the way, the Pennsylvania polls close in literally minutes, 2 minutes.
Dang.
And if not sooner, because it actually is 8 p.m. on the East Coast.
Yeah, I got 8 o'clock on the dot by my clock.
Yeah. I will have you know, and is a, I guess, a disclaimer, if you will, because I am poor. I no longer pay for any sort of cable, so I rely on a wonderful service called Pluto TV.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to guess that their streams are a few minutes behind. So
probably.
But Pennsylvania, the big one.
The big one. It all comes down to that, basically. And one sign of hope I did hear is that Philadelphia apparently has had tremendous, like, record-breaking turnout today, which, it being a solidly blue city, could be very good news for Kamala.
Yeah. See, I'm just like and again, it's coming back from 2016. It's the complacency, everything, leading up to polls closing, showing that Hillary was ahead and that we were safe. We had this in the bag, and then just how fast it came crashing down. Like, I'm just like, I don't want to be like counting the chickens too quickly here.
Right. Yeah. No complacency until it's all done. But
we got someone in our chat too saying that 2016 was the first time they called off work the day after the election because they were up way too late the night of in despair.
Yeah.
We're going to be all over the place. Just I'm going to tell you right now, true to the name of the show, Hardly Focused, we're literally going to be just like bouncing. I feel like we're going to be bouncing between things and in topics and discussions here. But I do want to say, I recall now in 2020, it took how many days before they called Biden? It wasn't until that weekend, right?
It was Saturday, I think. Yeah. And again, that was mostly because of COVID, but like, I wouldn't be surprised. Like,
sorry, if I may cut you off, Massachusetts voted Kamala.
Hooray. I'm shocked. I did my part.
I mean, you knew that was going to happen, but I mean,
oh, crap. Nice I forgot to vote. Oh, crap. I definitely shouldn't have said that on the podcast about voting. Oh, crap. I definitely shouldn't have said that out loud.
Missouri and Alabama, Oklahoma, all for Trump again. No surprise.
Yep.
But D.C., Kamala Harris. So now she's right up there with Walter Mondale winning D.C.
Mm-hmm.
Walter Mondale, if you didn't know, only won his home state and of Minnesota, and then Washington, D.C. right now. Okay, so this is where it gets scary. And again, it's still too early. So like, I'm hoping we're blowing our load early here, but Trump 90 to Kamala's 27. Like,
an electoral vote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it too early to be scared seeing that disparity?
Absolutely too early. A lot of the bit, like, I don't know all the states that have been called yet, but like Florida, that's a red state now. Like, we're going to lose that early on. A lot of the South, basically everywhere south of Georgia, is going to be a guarantee red state win.
Yeah. Is it concerning to you that Georgia's now we're leaning red because Biden won Georgia?
Biden did win Georgia. I don't know if she'll win it again. I mean, I do think it'll be close either way. I in my predictive map, I did think Trump is going to take it, but I think Kamala is going to take North Carolina, which Biden did not, because of Mark Robinson is probably going to annihilate Republican turnout.
If I may go back to the comment I was reading earlier, 2020 and the length of time between election day and then when everything was called, and I believe it was made official during the famous or infamous Four Seasons total landscaping press conference, because that's where Giuliani started like doing a sign of the cross and then saying that only the courts can decide who is elected president, which I don't think is entirely true. But I recall having CNN on. This is back when I was actually paying for cable. Having CNN on for like a solid 5 days or however long it was. And boy, I did not get tired of watching what's his face, John King, up there with his big fancy screen there doing the play-by-play. But it was getting to the point where I was just like, I wasn't really sleeping. I was just having like lucid dreams because I had the news on all night. Like, I don't normally keep the TV on all night. I'll fall asleep to it, but
right.
No, and not this time. I just was arguably awake for 5 days. not really operating. It's because it was probably like you, Acc. You're just edge of your seat. What the hell is happening here? Because it was just so close, and I hope it is not like that this time around. The Associated Press, by the way. I mean, I'm looking at. I'm kind of bouncing between the different networks here in terms of coverage, but trust the Associated Press, because it's when the AP calls it, that's when everyone else is gonna start talking about it.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, it's early because they've only counted just 3% so far of the votes.
Yeah,
but in Pennsylvania is looking good right now.
Yeah, I mean, I just looked at the Associated Press vote tallies, and Kamala is ahead in Texas. Now, your lips to God's ears, but I would not keep my hopes up that holds.
Wouldn't that be hilarious if it did?
If it did, I mean, gee, that's the ball game right there. But I'm holding out. I think she's going to take the blue wall, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. I think she has a very good chance of taking North Carolina. And then that's basically, if every other state falls along expected lines, that's a win. That's Kamala takes it.
Sure. Sarah in our chat says the reaction videos are pretty fun. If losing an election gets the same reaction as the destruction of the Death Star, maybe you need to reevaluate your life.
If you happen to notice anyone in the chat who has a particularly elfish sounding name, I linked this live chat in my WoW Guild's Discord. So,
thanks, Acc.
I'm pretty sure that's who Soraya Shadow Harper is.
Yes. Well, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Glad someone is. Yeah. Okay. There you go. There it is. Now Texas is it just turned red.
Yeah.
According to the AP. So that was a fun few seconds while we had it.
Yeah. I mean, it's gonna be close. Like, that's what's fascinating about how polarized we live in. A lot of these states, like, I do think Texas is gonna end up red, but it's gonna be like 49-51. It's gonna be razor thin.
Yeah.
And how we ever managed to get that final 2%, I don't know. Because for my money, Kamala Harris has run a phenomenal campaign, and Donald Trump has run an awful campaign. But I don't think campaigns really matter anymore. I don't think anything any of the candidates do really has any direct effect on what voters are going to do.
Yep.
We're just so fucking polarized. We already know exactly what we're going to do.
I couldn't even tell you the name of Kamala's campaign spokesman. I couldn't. You know why? Because they aren't spewing belligerent shit.
Oh, yeah. They aren't that weird, like, mob boss fucking guy from the Trump campaign.
Oh, yeah. Stephen Chung.
Yeah.
A sumo wrestler.
Yeah.
That dude. That dude, if you. Yeah. When he gets mad at people, he sits on them. We didn't really talk on this show about the Madison Square Garden rally a couple of weeks ago. So a couple of weeks last week, we had
Mm-hmm.
Molly on the show,
Mm-hmm.
and then most of the episode is dedicated to talking about Taylor Swift because what else is new? But
Right.
um, the Madison Square Garden thing, it just happened, and Molly was actually surprised that like I didn't have it prepared, and I'm like, I don't want to talk about it because like you're gonna be here, and I know you're into you're political, but I just like it's the whole scenario just makes me angry,
Mm-hmm.
and there's some reassurance in just knowing that a lot of people were upset about that, and I saw like there were people out there, especially when it comes to Tony Hinchcliffe, like coming to his defense.
Mm-hmm.
Him being a comedian, just his type of comedy, and there weren't, yeah, okay, people were coming to his defense, at least in my realm, at least what I'm following, not a lot of people were out there coming
Yeah.
to his defense. There are a lot of people
Yeah.
who are just like, let's put it this way. You know, it's bad when the Trump campaign has to come out and say we're distancing ourselves from these comments.
Right. Yeah. I mean, geez, I wouldn't have expected the October surprise to be free written comments at a Trump rally that they themselves approved, but here we are. And yeah, like, I mean, it's possible. And again, I don't know for sure, but I have seen some poll results that this did affect, people, the mythical undecided voters who still weren't sure a week ago broke pretty heavily for Kamala in polling the last week because of that rally. To which I want to say, great, welcome to the resistance. But if you, in the year of our Lord, in fucking October of 2024, are starting to wonder, this Trump guy seems a wee bit racist. Do you need help putting your seatbelt on? Like, are you okay? Should you have a driver's license? I don't know how these people operate. What is the brain like of someone to whom that can actually like affect your opinion? Can like actually change, like you didn't know that he was like this? I'm just surprised.
What? I do think that at least for Pennsylvania and Michigan, I think we're gonna be waiting a while to hear those results. Do you think we're even gonna like know tonight, or do you think it's gonna be like 2020 and we're gonna be waiting a few days? Because that's on my I have a list of like predictions for how this is going to go out, and I've been hesitant to like mention any of them just because I don't want to jinx it. But one thing I am confident about that, like, I think is sort of neutral on its own, is that we're not going to have an answer tonight.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't be surprised. And again, it's going to depend on how close it is. So like if the important states, sorry, some states are important and others aren't. I just don't know what to tell you. If the important states are very close, I expect it's going to be a couple days before they fully announce. But, again, if it's a blowout, if results are looking really, really strongly in one direction or the other, I think we'll probably know tonight.
Mm-hmm. Does it confuse you at all how Maine and Nebraska do their electoral votes?
I mean, not really. I think it would probably, well, first of all, I am 100% in favor of abolishing the Electoral College. I think it's a travesty and should be done away with immediately. But I mean, I think the proportional electorates is probably a bit more democratic of a way to do it.
Maine and Nebraska, I mean, they have that like split system.
Yeah. So it's based on what individual county. Each county gets its own elector. So that basically, instead of, it does generally work out in our favor. If Nebraska would go fully to Trump, but because Omaha has basically its own elector, that's one extra for the Democrats. Mm-hmm. And I think the Electoral College is bullshit. It's interesting to me. I don't think a single human being alive, including Donald Trump or his most ardent defenders, think he can win the popular vote. Like, that's not even on the table. No one thinks he can win the popular vote. The only question is, will he win enough few thousand of people in just the right states to clinch the electoral college? And that sucks. I don't think that should be how it works. I don't think the dumbest weirdos, the dumbest 50,000 weirdos in the Midwest should get to decide every presidential election in American history. I don't think that's how anyone intended the system to go. So,
And again, and I feel like I'm just preaching to the choir here, but like, did we not learn anything 4 years ago? Did we not learn anything between 2016 and 2020?
yeah, that's true. I don't know how we would go about abolishing the electoral college. I don't know if it would take a constitutional amendment or what. But
Yeah, because now this is where, like, the desperation and I'm not, because I'm not a religious person in the least, but like, I'm not sitting here praying to God that Kamala Harris is going to win the election, but I am putting a lot of faith in Alan Lichtman, because this is a guy who has called. I'm going to argue and say literally every election he is correctly called every election.
Yeah, he's the guy with the keys, right?
Yes. And okay. He has, and even up through today, he continues to stand by his prediction that Kamala is going to win. I think, like, because the one that he got wrong was Al Gore, and depending on who you talk to, like Gore, like, didn't he technically win? It just, the Supreme Court then handed it over to Bush in his favor.
Yeah, my understanding is he would have won a recount of Florida, but the Supreme Court, stacked by, judges appointed by Republicans, nixed any further recounts. And so Bush won Florida. And, again, that's the difference between the parties is, it became kind of a joke. Like, I know South Park and like plenty of people have made fun of Al Gore and the Democrats over the years for like sour grapes and, recount. I need a recount. But at the end of the day, we gave up. We let Bush win. There was no storming the Capitol. Al Gore conceded. This is a thing Democrats do, and it is not a thing Republicans seem interested in doing any longer.
NBC right now, they're saying 99-27. But Associated Press, they'll say 95-35. So I'm still putting my eggs in the basket that is the Associated Press.
Yeah. And again, it basically doesn't matter yet. I think, what was my prediction for the final count? I know I did one up and sent it to the group chat today. I think I did. I'm 286 to 252 was my final guess. Okay. And I know people, who I would consider very smart people who've worked in Democratic politics for a long time that I follow on social media, who are a good deal more optimistic than that. I've seen people said they think Kamala's going to take 308 electoral points. So we'll see. I was hedging my bets a little bit more.
Now, what were your thoughts on the Iowa poll that came out? It was either yesterday or the day before that favored Trump. I'm sorry, Kamala.
I think that's really interesting. And now, I don't really know. Is polling fucked in 2024? Like, it sure seems like polling doesn't really know what it's doing anymore. So I don't know how much stake to put in it, even when it's polls that I like and want to believe. But from what I understand, the general expectation going into it was, if Trump is ahead by less than 10 in Iowa, in the Iowa poll, it's good news for Kamala. If he's ahead by less than 5, it's great news for Kamala. No one thought Kamala would win that poll. So that was kind of like really shocking. And either the polling has just been completely monumentally off and is broken beyond any usefulness, or Kamala Harris is on track to massively sweep the Midwest to win numbers that we haven't seen since Obama 08. And I don't know which one of those is more likely.
Now, but Iowa's not really it's not a battleground state, right? Like
It's
it's
considered. I mean, Obama won it in 2008, and I think that's the last time it went blue. Um, and yeah, I think we were just. It was assumed like, oh, if Trump isn't winning it by much, that's bad news for him.
yeah.
But everyone assumed it would still be a state he would win.
Mm.
So if Kamala takes it, and these things tend to work on trends. So it's like if the Democrat takes a state that's leaning historically red, that tends to be reflected in national trends as well. Like that tends to mean they're going to be doing better all over. So, if she wins Iowa, you can safely assume she had Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin locked up by that point. So who knows? I
Yeah.
don't want to take it as assumed or put too much stock in it because I do think it's very possible polling is just unworkable. From what I hear, from what I understand, most polling, most of the like highly rated top pollsters cold call like random people. Like they just call random numbers and then ask you questions. And I don't know a single human being under the age of 70 who answers random numbers when they get a call from them.
No, I don't. I
Yeah,
I'll tell
I
you right
don't.
now, I
Yeah,
don't.
so it's one of those things where it's like, do the polls, tend to only sample from a very niche minority of people who are willing to answer random phone calls to take polls. That's kind of a self-selection bias.
Yeah, because then they're like you'll get the text solicitations too, but then I didn't answer any of them. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't need to. Like for me, like obviously it's the undecided. Obviously
Mm-hmm.
it's the people who are leaning, one way and need that nudge. But for
Mm-hmm.
me, like I just ignore all this shit.
Yeah.
And now I don't know about you. I voted early.
Mm-hmm. I voted
I
today.
okay. I now like yeah, do I want to take part in the big thing like with everybody else? I mean, sure, but like I was itching to go, man. And
Mm-hmm.
even going to my early polling place, there was a line. I had to wait.
Yeah.
And even just for early voting, and that's I mean, again, that's in Massachusetts, and she won Massachusetts, so like,
Right.
no surprise. But
Mm-hmm.
um, I, then I'm getting all solicitations about uh going out and voting and this and
Mm-hmm.
the other thing, and I'm just like, leave me alone. I already did this.
Yeah. Funnily enough, I get a lot of both. I think a lot of them are just scammers. Like
Mhm.
anyone that has like a tiny URL link in it, I don't trust or click. For
So
one thing, I'm a recurring donor to the Democratic Party already. I do that via email. Uh, so my conscience is clean. I've done my part. Uh, so I will get text messages, both claiming to be from the Harris campaign and from the Trump campaign, that'll say like urgent 9-time donor match unlocked, donate now and we'll quintuple it or whatever the fuck, and click here immediately or else the other team will win, oh my god, what are you doing? And I always just mark as spam and ignore the number because
mm,
I'm pretty sure a good chunk of those aren't even affiliated with either campaign or a pack or anything. They're just harvesting data for seeing who clicks the link.
I can do it. I can do it 9 times. Did you watch that new Homestar Runner cartoon?
Oh, is there a new Halloween one?
I think so. It's
I
like it's a short one. It's only a couple minutes long.
No, I have not watched it. I forgot all
Ah,
about it.
I know. We're at the point now where like they continue to pump stuff out, even
Hmm.
if it's on an annual basis, and I, just kind of lands on my desk and gathers dust.
Yeah.
Uh, but all right, I do want to pull up the according to the AP, some precincts in Boston ran out of ballots.
Wow.
I don't think I've ever heard about that happening before.
No, I don't think I either.
I did want to pick your brain just about the ballot questions in
Yeah, sure.
Massachusetts, because Massachusetts is a fairly small state, and I've been to California during an election season where they will just go absolutely crazy on the the propositions. And
Mhm.
Massachusetts being a small state, like I felt like 5 was a lot for Massachusetts.
Yeah, in past years I think it was usually 3 most.
So now I'm not sure if this how accurate this is right now. Um, because I mean we're already projecting Kamala as the winner. I think it's going to be taking a while to tally these votes here. Okay, so these answers are not accurate. I'm looking at all of these and I'm like, there's no way. There's no way people voted this way, and it's a percentage of people.
Yeah.
On this. So, but the first question being auditing the state legislature. I mean, like, I say yes, because I'm assuming that has to do with money, and I want to make sure we're not misappropriating funds, and
Yeah,
that the money, especially if it has to do with the taxes that I'm paying, then I want to make sure that money's going where it's supposed to.
yeah, I voted yes on that, and I think my only momentary hesitation was I could see it being a situation where like one crank Republican tries to like hold up the legislature so that the Democrats can't pass anything. But then I thought, it's Massachusetts. Every single member of this group is going to be Democrats. So if it's Democrats auditing other Democrats, I'm fine with it.
Question the second. Now I don't like how at least the AP worded this. They say question 2 repeals requirement to pass a competency exam to
Oh yeah, the
graduate from
MCAS.
high school. Yeah, no, it's the MCAS. And I know that the C in MCAS stands for comprehension.
Mm-hmm.
But like just call it the MCAS, because like the MCAS is the devil. The MCAS was the devil every year that we had to take it. What was it? It was like we had to take it in the 4th grade, I think, and then we had to take it in
the 6th grade.
It was either that or like the 8th grade, and then we had to take it sophomore year, and that was the one that would determine if you were going to graduate high school.
Right.
And boy, did I just hate taking the MCAS every time. Like we had to take it. I had more fun taking my SATs.
Yeah. I did good on my SATs, and I was upset because like that year when I was touring colleges, they're all like, and don't worry, starting this year, we will not be weighting SAT scores into college admissions. And I'm like, but that's the one thing I did good on. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure I did fine on the MCAS, but like, yeah, this is one of those issues where I don't fucking know shit about childhood development and how children learn. So I just trust the experts on this. If experts say that underserved communities tend to do poorer in standardized testing, even if they know the material and are able to pass the coursework, then I trust them. And I'm going to say, yeah, all right, fine. Then we don't need the MCAS then. If they said we do need the MCAS, it's the most important thing, then sure, I trust them. I trust that too. I don't personally know one way or the other.
It doesn't help too that in the medical field, the test is called the MCAT.
Yeah.
So every time I hear people talk about the MCATs, I'm like, hey, I took that in the 10th grade.
Okay, Doogie Howser.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I passed it sophomore year because I graduated high school. So
yeah,
I don't know how the hell I graduated high school, but I did.
I remember I was there.
Yeah. They just wanted to get rid of me. They were just sick of me. So I voted no. I'm sorry, I voted yeah. Whatever the question was, I voted to repeal it.
Yeah.
That way. I do not want my I think my cousin, one of my cousins is in high school now, and I can't remember if I think he's just a freshman. Maybe he's a sophomore. I don't want him to have to go through this shit. I don't want him to have to. I don't want my younger cousin, when she is in high school, to have to go through this, because I mean, it's like, I don't know how it is now, but I seem to recall when we were kids, there was a heavy weight of expectation with the MCAS, and like, you got to do well in the MCAS. And it wasn't even like, sophomore year. It was like, you got to do well in the MCAS 4th grade and 8th grade. And, for the kids that have like testing anxiety, Yeah, that's really going to bode well.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, I just remembered a really embarrassing memory. Do you want me to share it with you and the entire audience?
Yes.
This was middle school, I
Okay.
believe. I don't think I was this socially terrible in high school, but in middle school I definitely was.
Yeah.
We had an essay question. Um, it was an essay question in the MCAS, and it was to write an essay about someone you admire. And I wrote my essay about, and I'm going to be honest, I genuinely don't remember who it was at the time. All I remember it was a girl that I had a crush on, and I wrote my essay about how she was nice to me, and I really appreciated that. And then afterwards, talking with Stefan and Fro, and they were both like, I wrote about Martin Luther King Jr. And I was like, oh yeah, me too. That's totally who I also wrote about.
I wrote about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She was nice to me. I have a crush on her when she does her calisthenics.
That was like as soon as it happened, I was like, "Oh, I've made a huge mistake. Why did I do that?"
Now, I remember in the fourth grade, my essay question was like, I think it was something like, "What is the happiest day of your life?" And I wrote about like getting like a Sega Genesis for Christmas.
Yeah.
And it was like that's what I wanted.
Why not?
And my parents were very anti video games, so for them to relent and me to unwrap one on Christmas Day was, it was a great Christmas. And I seem to recall my score for that was very low, and it was mostly about the content. And it wasn't about like the writing or anything, because I've always been a good writer.
Right.
But they were just like nitpicking about me writing about that. I'm like, dude, like you asked what like the happiest day of my life was, and I told you. Like, if you're saying that's the wrong answer, then what the fuck? Boy, do I hope when I'm an adult there's some sort of ballot question that repeals this garbage.
Do you like video games? Yes. We're sorry. The answer was no.
Our teacher in the fourth grade too, and everyone seemed to love this guy. I didn't like him. And he would be the type to be like, very nice and polite to everyone. There are no right or wrong answers. And then I would like raise my hand to answer a question. He would just get in my face and go, wrong.
Yeah. Wrong answer. I don't know how you found it, but you did. That was a wrong answer.
You are wrong. You got it wrong. Everything you do in your life is wrong.
You did this bit once in high school. I think it was a Denise and Jack comic, and I remember it was very funny. I don't know if you genuinely thought it up or if you stole it from somewhere. It was that funny. But
let me preface, Denise and Jack, before I decided like podcasting radio is the thing I wanted to do, I wanted to be a cartoonist, like the great Bill Watterson, Jim Davis. So I had a long and like legitimately long running comic series about me and my talking dog. And it was mostly socio-political humor that when I look back, and I have every single one of them in a box, and every once in a while I look at those cartoons and I'm like, wow, at 12 years old, I was shockingly with it. But go ahead.
It was a bit of this was probably early high school. One of the teachers just berating you, going, Jack, the writing of this essay is atrocious. Your grammar makes no sense. The subject matter, it's clear you don't understand. You have a tenuous grasp of the English language at best. It is so difficult to read that I can barely make heads or tails of it. And the worst part is this was a math test.
I remember that, and I reused that. I used it when I took a video production in high school, and I made my unofficial sequel to the film Weird Science. Right. I had our math teacher. She agreed to have a cameo role, and it was her eviscerating me, and it was literally pretty much that entire thing line for line. And I told her I didn't have a script. She's like, "Where's the script?" I'm like, "I don't have a script. We're all just kind of improvising here." So just like berate me for writing this like really, really crappy essay as if like you're yelling at a high school for writing at a third grade level, and at the end of it, then point out that it was a math test.
Yeah, that's a good bit. That's a solid bit. I wouldn't be surprised if you stole that from a sitcom or something. That's how good a bit that is.
The one that the comics that I was really proud of, and one of them it was deemed like everyone that read it I knew thought it was okay. So the adults. So here's the thing. Here's what I do. Because the internet was in its infancy. I would make the comics and then I would take them to school the next day. And there was always a 50-50 chance that the comic would get taken away.
Right.
And then from that point, 50-50 chance if I ever got it back. And if you're Joanna Moquin, if you're listening, I want my goddamn comic back. I'm literally missing one that she took and I never got it back.
Oh my God.
And I don't even remember what it was about. I was just mad that it was taken and never returned to me. But I would always gauge it by when I take it to school, and would people laugh? And for the most part, they would. But there was one in particular that everyone thought, and it was getting like passed around in the lunchroom. That was the thing. These would get passed around in the lunchroom.
Right.
And they would always be handled with care.
Mm-hmm.
People would read them and they love them. And like, even like the jerks, I would expect like to get like a crumpled piece of paper back, and like everybody liked it. So, and it was George Bush. It was like, I can't remember. It was like freshman year of high school. It was George Bush giving a presidential address, and he's just doing commentary on like, what was big at the time. And I go back and I'm looking at this, and like the date is like, it's got like a 2003 date on it.
Mm-hmm.
And here is, my bad cartoon drawing of Bush talking about how hot Diana DeGarmo was on the previous night's American Idol, and how he's talking about the R. Kelly sex tape. And he's like, if I've seen one adult film, I've seen them all. And just like all the comments, I'm looking, I'm like, at 35 now, I look at this, I'm like, what the fuck? I don't even pay attention to this degree today. And I'm making all these jokes, and then I think about how topical they were. I'm like, wow, in 2003, I'm joking about the R. Kelly sex trial. Like,
yep.
It's a thing that continues to this day.
Yeah.
And then the other was that my father would make copies of them, and he would take them to work and pass them, anyone that wanted them. And, some of them, like a lot of the times people are like, I don't get it, but he's your kid, so let's just be nice to you. Yeah. The one that elicited laughs was all about Saddam Hussein and his kids. And he's like just having a meeting with his kids. One of them has already been blown to smithereens. So there's just a skeleton sitting there. Yeah. Because one of the sons had like just died. Like he was killed in a bombing. So like I factored that in, and I drew the other one as severely mentally handicapped, like Eric Trump. And then they get hit with a Moab because Moabs were the thing. And for the older audience, they appreciated that. And then again, at 35, I look at that comic and I'm like, all right, I'm 35. There are two wars happening right now in the world, the Ukraine and then in Israel. And I'm not anywhere close to educated on what is happening out there right now. Yeah. How was I paying attention so closely at 14?
All right, Teen Jack, bring us up to speed on the occupation of Gaza.
Let me tell you about them heroes. Oh man, with that tzatziki sauce, throw some lamb in there, and then whatever you have left over, put in the pot, and you got a stew. 101 to 52. But yeah, are we confident still that it's too early?
Oh yeah. Okay. Oh, it looks like Kamala just bounced to 71 a moment ago.
Oh, looks like they're confident about Illinois. It looks. Oh no, she won Illinois.
Yeah, Illinois is a safe blue state.
All right.
Iowa is still gray, has not started counting yet.
No, and in Michigan, I know there's still that one's going to be taking a while, but I know we've got all eyes on Michigan, and there's some degree of confidence there.
I'm pretty confident in Michigan. I think Michigan is Michigan and Wisconsin, I think are very safe. I think Pennsylvania is going to be the closest of those three. And I still think Kamala has a good chance of taking it.
Now, if she wins Pennsylvania is like, is that it, or
I will
is
go
it
to bed feeling a lot more calm,
okay?
you know,
But
like,
if it's only like, say we don't know about Pennsylvania tonight, but then we get Michigan, we get Minnesota, Wisconsin, same deal.
yeah, I mean, if Pennsylvania is just isn't called, um, then yeah, if it's called for Trump, the things get much narrower. But I mean, if she were to still pull out in like Arizona and Nevada, she could make up for it.
Mhm.
I know Arizona, you had pointed out earlier that whatever site 270 to win or whatever had it as lean red. I
Yeah,
did read that apparently the Trump administration during the last census in 2020 uh dramatically, like intentionally dramatically undercounted um the Latino population, like legal citizens who can vote.
yeah.
So those people will not be polled. Um but if it's possible that there's a lot of them who aren't represented in polling but will go out and vote Democrat, it could swing Arizona
Yeah.
more blue.
I am curious just because I mean Florida was a given in voting for Trump, and I wouldn't
Hmm.
say they did so overwhelmingly because it was still, I would say it's 56-43. That's relatively close.
So one thing that's interesting is he won. He's apparently getting more votes in Florida than he did in 2020. Um, but instead of that being a broader trend about his popularity, it's entirely possible that Ron DeSantis turned Florida into basically Republican Mecca, and Republicans have left other states to go live in Florida. So while Florida's Republican votes may go up, that may result in Republican votes going down everywhere else in the country.
Go to somewhere where if you're not concerned about the electoral college in the least, and then you
Hmm.
realize, hey, they're it's not really one that like has any. Well, I mean, it's got 30 votes, but still, like that's
Yeah,
not one that's weighing heavily on this election.
it's one of those things. It doesn't matter if it goes 51% to Trump or 60% to Trump. It's the same number of votes. So if more people are flocking there and basically wasting their votes,
Mhm.
and again, that's what's fucking stupid about the Electoral College. If you ask me, everyone, including Republicans, should want to abolish the Electoral College. Because I read something recently. It's like Trump voters in California would be like the fourth largest state in the country. But as it is right now, their votes are meaningless.
Mhm.
I'd want my vote to count personally.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you.
I mean, at least like being in Massachusetts, we can say like we did our part. We
Yeah.
got our desired outcome.
Hmm. But I mean, in the end, we could have stayed home. We could have joiked our goikins, and instead, we went out to vote, but it didn't make any difference because we would have won anyway. But yeah, I'm glad we did. It's important to do it. I tried to give the least appealing way to say that.
Masturbate. He's talking about masturbation, folks. Masturbation. I'm sure that got my neighbor's attention. Okay, so Florida, I honestly, now having been there several times in the last couple of years, I'm gonna be honest with you. I mean, the weather's nice when there's not a hurricane completely annihilating everything. But at least like the parts that I spend the most time in,
Hmm.
I don't know if like the Orlando area is more blue just because of like the nature of things out there.
I have
But
no idea.
I went down to Miami a couple of weeks ago, and I mean, Miami's a relatively big city. It's one of the biggest cities in the union.
Hmm.
And I gotta imagine, I mean, I wasn't seeing a lot of like, Trump signs everywhere, but I gotta
Hmm.
imagine I'm at the point now, and this is why I'm gonna be so happy when this is over, assuming it works out in our favor, because just thinking about, when I look at someone driving a Cybertruck, okay,
Hmm.
I saw so many Cybertrucks in Miami,
Yeah.
more in Miami than I've seen anywhere else,
Hmm.
and I am immediately I think, okay, Cybertruck, Elon Musk, Donald Trump.
Right.
Now I know who you're supporting in this race. And that's just, it's just something that I don't want to think that way.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
I don't want to. I did this today. I saw I took Cooper to the vet, and he's my human son, by the way. I took Cooper to the vet, and while I'm there, I just see an older gentleman, stocky looking dude. One might guess he might be like a biker, definitely blue collar, and he's wearing like, there's like a certain type of sunglasses he's wearing, right? And I'm at that point where I'm looking at him. First thing I'm thinking in my mind is, you voted for Trump today, didn't you, sir? Because and it's just like, I don't want to be in that mindset.
Right. No, I agree. It sucks. That's, I really hate Trump. And one of the reasons I really hate him is because he's made me the type of person capable of that level of hate. I don't want to be like that. I want to be very live and let live. I want to be very, everyone has some goodness in their hearts, but Trump makes it very hard to believe that.
Yeah, we talked about this, I think in 2020 when Biden was elected, where we just assumed that, I mean, we weren't half right, that, we were hopeful that we would never have to worry about Trump again. We didn't have to talk about this again. Here we are. I thought I really didn't think I'd have to be worrying about this. I am, this is not hyperbole. I have been just low key, just like on edge for the last month, maybe 2 months. And I really think it's starting to just affect how I am operating just in general. Yeah. And it's one of those things where I'm just not even really, like, the two aren't connected, but it's definitely enough that it's putting me in such a sour mood. Like, to bear with me here. The election and the everything, the atmosphere it's cast like a cloud over me. And I think it's, I'm realizing just, the way I've just been acting either, around, Becky or at work or what have you. It's related, but it's one of those things that you wouldn't immediately put it together. It's like, why am I stressed? Why am I mopey? Right. Why am I short? Oh, it's because I'm just in a perpetually bad mood because I'm scared of how November 5th is going to play out. Yeah. And I'm not like politically minded in the least. I just really don't want to have a not even just a repeat of 16 through 20. I don't want to repeat of January 6th. I don't want to repeat of the time between when Biden was elected and when he finally took office. Like, once he was in office and it was solidified, we could breathe and then we could sit back and watch people ruin their lives. And just the degrees that people were going through to ruin their lives. Yeah. Whether or not they wanted to or not, like Giuliani, for example, like that was entertaining at that point. But now here we are. Now I'm like, all right, I'm now just going to be living in this perpetual state of fear, really hoping that from January 20th of next year onwards, that it's good again. Yeah. And that maybe that, the vitriol that we see from the right and the MAGA hats especially, that just really just dwindles and goes away. And the house in front of my polling place, by the way, okay, I always figured, and again, this goes back to what I was saying about, like, it's really bad that I look at someone and just based on like their appearance, I can be like, I know who you're voting for. And I always kind of got the vibe seeing these people. Yeah. But the signs they had out in front of their house right next to the polling place, they had the fight like hell with Trump after he had gotten shot. They had Joe and the hoe gotta go. Oh, yeah. Just seeing that, and I'm like, oh, okay. Now I know you're a piece of shit. Right. Like, thank you for telling the neighborhood that you're a piece of shit. While you're at it, you might as well tell them that you're a sex offender too. And if you are, you're legally required to do that. But like, if that dude's house doesn't have like, if his windows, if I go by his house tomorrow and don't see like plastic bags over his windows because people were throwing things through them, I'll be shocked. Because when you have that shit out in your yard, you're asking for it.
Yeah.
Forgive me, Acc. I feel like if you had anything to chime in there, please.
Oh no, I don't think so.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I get it. It's, you know, Trump has ruined the discourse so thoroughly, and I don't know how we come back from this. Now the question, if we can get a little ahead of ourselves, count our chickens before they hatch. If and when Trump loses this year, is he the de facto Republican nominee in 2028? And until very recently, I was an adamant yes. I was like, I absolutely think we're stuck with him until he's dead. He's just going to keep running over and over again and winning the primary unless, you know, the GOP just stops having primaries and doesn't let him run. I do get the vibe the past few weeks that he's very tired and not having fun and is kind of sick of all this shit. And with that thought in mind, I wouldn't be surprised if he just fucking finally slinks away into, you know, disgrace and just hides out in Florida. But I don't know. I mean, if he runs again, I think he wins. I think I think the Republicans are still the party of Trump. Yeah. I don't think there's any, you know, I think they tried. Plenty of Republicans tried to either be we need to return to principled conservatism candidate, and plenty of them tried to be we need Trumpism, but with me being the Trump this time instead. And none of them worked. They all failed.
So the sort of switcheroo, the obvious switcheroo when Biden dropped out of the race, because Biden's what, 82?
Yeah, 81, 82.
And there were all the comments about just how old Biden is and him running for re-election. And even then, just like the performance at the first debate, I mean, like, it was bad. It was bad.
Yeah.
And it just would have been a struggle if he didn't drop out. And I know he didn't want to drop out. Everyone around him telling him to do it. And it truly, I think, was for the best.
Yeah, I agree.
And then, of course, it now then makes Trump de facto the oldest candidate. Yeah. Because he is now the same age that Biden was 4 years ago when Biden won.
Yeah.
So to your point, Acc, if Trump becomes the nominee again in 4 years, that just doesn't make any fucking sense, because he's what? He's going to be 82. He's going to be Biden's age.
Yeah. But again, rules that apply to everyone else do not apply to Trump for whatever reason. I don't know what monkey's paw he wished upon in his younger days, but the man is already very demonstrably old. The man already rambles, already cannot complete his sentences, already struggles to walk around, already loses his train of thought. He does currently all the things that Biden sometimes does in his old age, and no one cares. Right. When Biden did it, it was enough for an absolute national panic. The entire country lost their shit that Biden was too old. And meanwhile, Trump's doing the same things, and everyone's just like, oh, well, that's just Trump. That's fine. It's whatever.
I will say it felt like in the last, I wish it was sooner, but it felt like in the last few weeks that people were really starting to pay more attention to Trump from a cognitive perspective, and we're starting to scrutinize him the same way that they were scrutinizing Biden.
Yeah. I mean, I hope so. Yeah.
The whole thing, like with the dump truck trying to open the door and just missing.
Yeah.
That felt like truly for the first time, everybody was pointing to that and saying that's bad.
Right.
That is a sign of weakness. And when I say it's bad, it's like the same level that people were pointing at Biden for literally everything, like just the stuttering and the stammering, especially during the debate.
Yeah.
And then seeing Trump do that. Final, like for everything else that Trump had done up until that point,
Mm-hmm.
like so. There's this from Biden, right?
Let me start off with two words: made in America.
And that could the press would roll with that for a day. It was
Yeah.
just so like gratifying to finally see them, as long as it took, finally be like, here's Trump trying to open a door. He can't do it. He is too old. He cannot. And you know that you were just talking about how tired and exhausted he is and everything. And you know what it is. It's the whole crux of this with Trump running for president, and of course he secured the nomination. What it is, it's a really elaborate last ditch effort to avoid jail time.
Yeah, I see a lot of people say that. I don't. I mean, maybe it is like maybe that's what he's thinking. I would just bet if I had to bet money, just if I were a betting man, I would say no matter what, even if he loses, Trump never sees the inside of a jail cell. Right? He's rich, he's powerful, and it would simply be too much of a political firestorm to actually arrest him. I think more than anything, what we want is for him to just go away. Uh,
Yeah.
So maybe he does truly fear being arrested in a way I don't think is likely that he'd be arrested, but
Well, see, that's the thing that scares me is because you think about the 34 felonies, you think about the mugshot that he got in Georgia, everything that's happened in the last 4 years. You think that all that would be enough?
Yeah,
and it wasn't. It wasn't
right. I mean, his fans like
it.
it. Yeah, his fans thought it was cool. You see, there are shirts out there. I'm voting for the outlaw. They think it's badass. And you know what it is? It's I kind of blame, and it's one reason I really hate this attitude of, oh, all politicians suck. That very common pervasive opinion. I get why people feel this way. But, for my entire life, people have going, well, both parties suck. They're all crooks. Every politician just wants to fuck you over. None of them really care about you. They're all goddamn crooks and liars. So a lot of people, let me put it this way. I don't actually think a single Trump supporter thinks he's innocent. I don't think anyone has ever looked at Donald Trump and said, oh, yeah, this guy who was a New York real estate broker in the 80s and only hired security guards with names like Tony Pepperoni. This guy has never broken a law in his life. I don't think anyone believes that shit. I think everyone knows he's a criminal, but the people who support him think every politician is a criminal and it's unfair that only he is getting punished for it.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll see these people, they'll say like, oh, well, yeah, he brought a couple of felonies. Who gives a shit? Kamala Harris is actually fucking bringing in illegal immigrants to replace white Americans. That's the real crime, and so they're able to be okay with Trump's felonies because they see it as, well, it's something everyone does. And it's a witch hunt that only he has to face consequences.
Yeah. Saria saying in our chat, I think it finally flipped when he was shouting about Haitians eating dogs and cats. And if I may,
they're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats.
I hope that convinced a couple people to vote against him.
Yeah, I would hope that the concepts of plans line also was, a nail in the coffin. Because that, God, hearing that and hearing it live and just knowing like that's just I'm going to be saying that now for the rest of my life. Concepts of plans when people ask, and it doesn't matter the scenario. Like I'm waiting for the opportunity to pull that out at work. And yet still, again, wasn't enough to sway anybody.
Right. You know what? It does actually really suck that Trump has some genuine like bangers of lines that are fun to repeat. Like one that, his tweet where he's like, young boy goes to doctor, gets vaccinated, starts acting very strange. Bam, autism, many such cases. Like, have you seen that one
I
tweet?
have.
It's from years ago,
It is,
but
yeah.
I find myself saying many such cases all the time. Like, it has completely worked its way into my vocabulary. And then when I remember it's a Trump line, I'm like, oh, I'm like disgusted with myself that like I repeat that because his line, the way he used it in, like, it's a funny thing to make jokes about, but like it is a disgusting thing he was saying.
Right.
So I'm just conflicted about it.
I love, speaking of Trump memes, one of my favorites was when there was that kid that really wanted to mow the White House lawn.
Mm-hmm.
So he did, and Trump is just standing there, but from like a far distance, just like trying to
Screaming at
talk.
him.
Yeah, talk at the kid, and the kid obviously can't hear him. One of my favorite ones when it's Trump shouting, "Do you know where I could find 11,780 votes?" uh, now, it again, too early to tell here, but according to the AP, and this, I have a feeling this is going to flip, but 31% so far being counted. But Kamala's ahead in Kansas. But that I'm anticipating that's going to change because there's it looks like a 20,000 vote difference here. So
yeah, I wouldn't be too that's not one that's on my radar, but
yeah, like,
she just jumped to 99. Oh, New York.
Okay.
99 to 106.
New York going blue though. I mean, like, did that surprise you? Were we expecting that?
New York? Oh yeah, it's safely blue. It's one of those land doesn't vote situations where if Republicans will like to show a map and show like the little teeny tiny dot of blue in the center of New York City, and then every area around it is red.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, that's really something. Too bad 99.9% of the state lives in that blue dot and land doesn't get to vote. People do. So
sure.
yeah, it was always going to be a very safely blue pickup.
As of right now, according to the AP, 120 to 99. Trump also just jumped up quite a bit because they're factoring in Kentucky, West Virginia. I mean, all the places we expected him to win.
Oklahoma, the Dakotas.
Yep. Nebraska, obviously, is going to be, it looks like it's going to be a mix, but still very early.
It was expected.
There. Kansas, I'm curious about Kansas. I'm anticipating it's going to change, but at 31% counter right now and just seeing just like where Kamala is, I mean, that would be actually, I mean, it's only 6 votes, but that would be fascinating to see that flip.
Yeah.
But I know like Pennsylvania still all eyes on that, Michigan all eyes on that, and it's going to be a waiting game.
Yeah.
At this point, it's going to be a waiting game. So, all right, while we sit and wait, just the other Massachusetts ballot questions because we were going through.
Oh yeah, I forgot we were doing that. Hardly focus, folks.
Before I get to that, you were talking about like people who are just like, both parties suck, I'm not voting. Julian Casablancas from the Strokes did an interview today, say he didn't vote for anybody, because he says, quote, "The two parties are a joke, a horrible lie. I see little point in choosing between these puppets." That coming from the enemy.
Yeah, well, that's the mindset I'm talking about. I think that gave way for people to think Trump is the answer.
Yeah.
And that has just made everything much worse because, again, both parties are not evil puppets. One party clearly is more so. And I think even if you have disagreements with the Democratic candidate, if you share any sort of value sets with me whatsoever, it's harm mitigation. It's better to have someone in office who is closer to your values. The big one, I would say right now, the big sticking point for a lot of people is the Israel-Palestine situation, to which I would just say, even if you don't love that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have not stopped the, congressionally approved weapon shipments to Israel, Donald Trump has said he will ramp up and fully encourage Netanyahu to go in there and wipe out the whole place. So, like, yeah, there is a difference. There is a difference between, some Palestinian casualties because of Netanyahu's war and complete annihilation of an entire people because Trump actively encouraged Netanyahu to be more crazy. I think, to me, that's a pretty substantial difference with some pretty real consequences in the real world. And I think if you care about real human beings and whether they live or die, I think that's worth taking into consideration. But
Yeah.
you know, a lot of people say no, they can't make that call. They're not comfortable with it. It's one death is too many. So I'm just staying out of it. I'm washing my hands of the whole thing.
Yeah, that, at least for me, when it comes to the international issues, I mean, like, and I don't know if, you know, this really is the same mindset with other voters, but like, I really haven't been thinking so much about that as opposed to, you know, the domestic issues. Maybe that's because I live here, but maybe at the same time, I should be worried about, you know, Kamala taking office and having that power. But I mean, Trump had that power. People had to tell him, don't use it.
Yeah.
Be careful.
Yeah, he has ramped up his rhetoric that he wants to use the military to go after American protesters. And like, you know, the fucking defense of him is that, oh, he's lying. He's just saying that. He just says things like that. Don't be hysterical. Don't believe everything he says. That's a pretty terrible defense.
Yeah. By the way, shout out to the great Quincy Jones, who didn't want to have to live through this, I guess.
Yeah.
He was like, you know what? I can't witness this. I can't do it. I'm 91 years old. I've seen so many. I've seen so many elections. I witnessed a president get assassinated. I don't want to do this again.
You know, I'm
just gonna tap out.
I remember, and again, I want credit here because I was a big Hillary Clinton fan and I was ardently in favor of her in 2016. I was a Trump hater when a lot of people were still kind of indifferent, didn't have a big stake in this. I remember, do you remember how like so many celebrities died in 2016?
Oh, yeah. The rolling list of holy shit, the great celebrity genocide.
Yeah. And people kept making comments like, wow, what is happening this year? What terrible things are going on? What is up with it? And I remember being one of the only people who would say, you don't see Trump and his campaign and his rise in popularity as one of those things. Why is no one else acting like this is one of those clear signs of how fucked up everything is? And like very few people were bringing that up, is like, they were just like, oh, 2016, bad year, all these celebrity deaths. And I'm like, yeah, bad year, all these celebrity deaths, and Trump. He sucks. He's horrible. You're all going to hate him as much as I do one day. Please listen to me when I say things like this.
Forgive me, I'm getting over a cold. My throat has been
no worries.
Mess. Okay, so just to recap it over the last 5 minutes here. So Trump has so far won North Dakota, South Dakota, as you mentioned. Acc also won Louisiana, Wyoming, and looking at Kansas, I mean, we're at 36% counted now, but I mean, Kamala still has that lead.
Are you seeing that Wyoming is called for Trump with 0 votes called counted on the AP site?
Yeah. That is, I mean, nobody lives in Wyoming. I mean,
exactly.
Yeah. The fucking Yellowstone.
One cow knocked into and tipped over a Donald Trump sign, and they counted that as a vote.
You remember that it was on The Simpsons when they were, I think, voting. I can't remember if it was like between Quimby and Sideshow Bob, but they're showing like everybody, like they're at the ballot machines, but then they start showing other like methods of voting, and it was 2 toilets next to each other.
Yep.
Yeah. So
one nice meme I saw around the time Joe stepped down and Kamala took over was that famous scene where it shows the Republican convention and all the signs are like, we hate you, we're literally evil. And then the Democrat convention is, we hate ourselves, we can't govern. And people were editing that because there was like so much excitement when Kamala took over the head of the ticket. They were actually editing that to be like, we love ourselves, we might actually be able to govern.
I am so mad like I didn't get any like traction on this, but I really would love to see Trump and Kamala walking down a city street holding hands, and have one of them be like, "We're merely exchanging protein strands." 137 to 99. But again, that's not factoring any of the battleground states.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, for real this time, the Massachusetts ballot questions. Question number 3 allows rideshare drivers to form labor unions. I was like, this is one of those ones, and when it comes to like voting for the ballot questions, I always feel like I'm taking a test and I'm going to give the wrong answer, because even if it's something that I've read up on, I still am like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, is it something that's going to impact me?
Right.
Or anybody close to me? And I don't remember what I said for allowing rideshare drivers to form labor unions. I do know it's to be part of that union. It basically means that, like, being an Uber driver, being a Lyft driver, it's your full-time job. You have to hit I think 100 rides per month or something like that. Like, there's the union dues are a lot.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, you're kind of putting your faith in just jumping in some random stranger's car and expecting everything to go smoothly.
Mm-hmm.
And having worked for a company that had a union, people fall back on the union for everything. People can act like giant pieces of shit and know that the union will back them.
Right.
So that's the thing I just concerned about. And now that I'm thinking about this out loud, I'm sure I said no. But just thinking about, if you have one of those renegade Uber drivers and then they just fall back on, well, I'm in a union, so I'm protected.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't think of that. I voted yes. I'm generally, I'm pro-union. I'm pro-worker over the company. I know there were all those commercials. I don't know if you got these for that question that were like showing Uber drivers being like, I don't want to be an employee. I like being freelance. It works for me. It's better for my schedule. And then, of course, at the end it says paid for by Uber, Lyft, like all these groups. And I'm like, yeah, fuck you. I do not believe you for a goddamn second. So I voted yes.
Okay. Well, where are we at right now with this? I mean, it's still a very small percentage. I guess it's coming in, but it looks like so far we're leaning yes here. Okay. Curious about this one, legalizing certain psychedelic substances.
I voted yes. And that's what, I'm pretty straight edge. I don't really give a shit about drugs, but if people want to use them, and the wording of the ballot initiative made it seem like it was pretty strictly for, you had to get a license, you have to have it be for medicinal purposes, you have to be of a certain age, et cetera, et cetera. And if you meet all those criteria, who am I to tell you can't chew a mushroom? That ain't none of my business. That's between you and the fungal king.
And for the uninitiated, Massachusetts, tweed, the ganja, the grass, that has been for recreational use legal for several years now.
I always forget that that's not the norm.
Yeah, it's just so crazy now. Just like how many, how many dispensaries there are.
It's so normalized here. I walk by like 3 dispensaries on my way to work. People are smoking weed all over the place, and it doesn't bother me.
No, as long as you're like not being belligerent about it. I mean, It's just like alcohol,
Okay, there is one time it bothered me because we had this neighbor who used to stand right outside our window in the parking lot and smoke weed, and the smell would come in, and that was pretty annoying. But they haven't been out there in a while. I think they moved out. So now I'm back to not caring about weed.
You didn't enjoy the contact high?
It didn't smell very good. Okay. I don't know if this was low quality weed or what, but didn't care for it.
Yeah, see, my parents would always, back when we lived in a duplex when I was very little, they have a disdain for the band The Jesus and Mary Chain, which is hilarious because I love them. But our neighbor for a long time would just get ridiculously high, just smoke a fuck ton of pot and then blast the Jesus and Mary Chain. And I'm like, now as an adult, I'm like, dude, I want to hang out with you. I might not smoke, but I'll definitely listen to the Jesus and Mary Chain with you.
Yeah, why not?
So the ballot here, question 4 in Massachusetts, it's legalizing the use of substances found in mushrooms and plants for folks 21
Mm-hmm.
and older. So,
Mm-hmm.
now, basically adding shrooms to the menu at your local dispensary.
Yeah.
Which, like, if you've got like severe mental issues, and Democrat Josh Stein defeats Republican Mark Robinson in North Carolina governor's race. That's 20 minutes ago.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
Well, that's also not surprising. That guy was a lunatic.
That's the dude. That's the black Nazi, right?
Black Nazi. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, good.
Yeah.
Good. Did it bode well for the rest of North Carolina? Or at least they're still leaning red. So
Still leaning red, but I mean, not by that much. So we'll see. 42% counted.
So, all right. So, yes to the shrooms, and then finally, question 5: raising the minimum wage for tipped workers. I said no to this because I just fear that in doing that, like, I personally, I know a lot of bartenders who do very well on tips alone.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, raising the minimum wage for tipped workers, that's just going to raise the prices of food at restaurants. I mean, you're already sort of seeing that residual effect in California when they jacked the minimum wage up. And then all of a sudden, like, almost immediately, everyone's complaining about how much, and again, this is just California alone, but then how much, like, a fast food meal costs.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, yeah, because now we're paying all the part-time workers, what, $25 an hour? Like, good for them, but like, it's sort of like counterintuitive if you think about it.
Right.
So what did you say?
I did vote yes. Again, pro worker. My stance on it is if the restaurant can't afford to pay their employees, that restaurant will go out of business, and one that can't afford to pay its employees will take its place.
I heard your dad went to a restaurant, ate everything in a restaurant, and they had to close the restaurant.
So true.
All right, very good. So we can wrap this up. 177 to 99, but again, waiting for the
every state that matters. You know, every state that's been called is a state where it's not a surprise. Oh, he did take Texas. Not too surprised there.
I mean,
but
yeah, it would have been shocking if Kamala won.
Yeah, it would be.
Is this the point, Acc, where you start to panic?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I'm low key always have a bit of anxiety, right? That's just sort of my default state. But I don't see any concrete evidence that panic is warranted yet beyond my base level of panic.
We're pretty, like, confident that Colorado would win.
Oh yeah,
or that Kamala would win Colorado.
Yeah, Colorado I think is going to be safe blue.
Okay, now Minnesota, safe.
Minnesota should be safe blue. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, a couple of these that are currently shown is leaning red are at like 0 to 2% of the votes counted. Like, I think New Mexico is going to be blue. I think Minnesota and Wisconsin are going to be blue.
Okay. See, that's what's scaring me. I'm looking at this right now. I'm like, look, I know it's still too early to tell, but just seeing them now pop up and starting off red. I mean, that's like, you know, kind of anticipating, you know, that like Kansas is gonna flip at some point. It's still right. I mean, Kansas is what I've been watching right now. I'm like very interested.
That's surprising.
Kansas, where it is.
Iowa's currently blue. That's what that poll was. So they're taking Iowa.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're gonna be watching this for the rest of the night, but for this, we can wrap this up. So
yeah. I mean, I work in the office on Wednesdays, so I got to go to bed early. I might not be up when things are called.
I'm sure I'm going to be doing exactly what I did in 2020, and that's going to be just staying up all night with the TV on.
Yep.
Watching this and not sleeping, and then now here's the thing: in 2020, I was working at a job I hated so much that I just wasn't doing shit at. I was doing the least amount of work necessary. Now I currently work a job where I'm doing everything, and even the littlest bit of slack will hurt me in the long run. So, and so I should probably sleep tonight.
Sleep is probably a good thing. Yeah.
Oh, it's a good thing that we're not affiliated with iHeartMedia too, by the way, because a lot of good people in the radio business lost their jobs yesterday.
Yeah, I heard.
He, so, uh, I left not like I was going to get any response to it, but so Rich Shirtley from Toucher and Rich, his morning show that he started in May in Boston on WZLX, ended yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And I reminded him, hey, you still outlasted David Lee Roth, technically. And that was 4 months, and he was 5. So he's still technically outlasted. But Jesus Christ, after only 5 months with all of the like they were like really pushing it too. Near my therapist's office, they actually had a billboard for him that they just put up. So hey. But
I'm still paying off our deposit on that billboard.
Just going through the list of like people who were like, oh, and it's just like it was like top talent, and that's like just the state of the radio industry right now. You know, it was either you had your gig for mere months, or you were like, at this point too, especially in that business, if you've been holding down the same gig for like upwards of 20 years, you're gonna get fired. Right. Like that's just it. They're weeding up the dinosaurs. And then for other cases, I think in the case of Rich, it was like you want to fire the guy, but you can't like really justifiably fire him. So you kind of pray layoffs will happen. And then the layoffs happen. And then you're like, oh, you know what? We'll just put you on the list and hope that we actually follow through with it and that you don't accidentally receive a paycheck for several years. Yeah. In which case you'll be broadcasting from the boiler room. Okay. Acc, thank you.
Hey, thanks for having me. It was fun chatting with you while hitting refresh on these web pages over and over again.
Yes. And for those of you who followed us live, thank you. Not often do we do a live show here, but this was fun. I'm glad we did this.
Yeah.
We'll do it again sometime.
And I didn't say anything really horrible or to get us canceled forever, I think.
Not that you know of.
And now to end the show, to discuss my thoughts on the Polish. I think those fucking...
I gotta say, maybe I'll send it to you, but Jim Norton had his he does a podcast with his wife who is trans, which is funny because when little Jimmy announced that he had gotten married into a trans woman, I'm like, dude, for all those years I listened to you on O&A, I thought you were joking.
That's actually pretty surprising to me. Yeah, I wouldn't have pegged him for someone to be that progressive, but
pegged.
That wasn't intentional.
But but no, they're very happy together. And their podcast, I actually listened to it for the first time today. I found it entertaining, but it's because Anthony Cumia was on, and Anthony, holding back his usual. I don't really follow him anymore because he just is a flaming racist now. His rhetoric is. As a broadcaster, I respect him. As a comedian, I respect him, but I do not agree with his views, and I will not listen to him. Yeah, because every time I've sampled his show, it's just him going off about minorities. And I'm like, dude, I can't all good conscious support this. But if you're just going to riff and tell jokes, I'm down for that. And listening to him with Jim Norton and his wife, it felt like the old days. They were just, everything was just rapid fire fucking licks, spitting licks. It was just so fucking funny. And the only difference now being that they're old. Yeah. But it felt like the old days again, without Opie interjecting with taking a phone call that we didn't need to take. So, all right, Acc, thank you very much. For the rest of me, of course, for the rest of you, thank you for listening. As this is live, we can only hope and hope for the best. And if you're listening to the podcast version of this, either congratulations or I'm sorry.
Yeah, to future us, good luck and Godspeed.
All right. We'll talk at you next time. See you. Bye.